Welcome, everybody. This is the first episode of the Jay Scott Ascension. Tonight we have a very special guest by the name of Tamika Renee. She is the host of the Winner's Circle. Welcome to the Winner's Circle podcast. Did I get that right?
Yes, thank
Perfect.
you.
No problem. We've been friends on Facebook for a little while, never met in person. However, even though I already have an episode recorded, there's a few special reasons why I wanted to make this episode the first episode that I'm officially going to launch the podcast with. I'd like to, and just so everyone has an idea about what this podcast is and what it's about, it's essentially me kind of interviewing people who have had an impact on my personal, growth, in different ways, and me interviewing people, who can shed light on different topics that I'm interested in. That's why it's called the Jay Scott Ascension, because it's everything it's me bringing to you guys everything that's helping me grow, if that makes sense. So with that being said, the reason you are here, Tamika, today is for a few reasons. Number one, you had an episode, on your podcast. It was one of the most recent episodes you did, I believe, with someone by the name of Zachy. And there was a few things he touched on in that episode that kind of inspired me a bit. And a lot of the things he was talking about was essentially having faith and chasing after your goals, no matter how unrealistic it might seem, or no matter how hard it might appear from the outside looking in. And
Right.
One of the reasons why I wanted to do this with you specifically is because even though your podcast doesn't have millions and millions of views yet, I wanted you to know that your episodes do have an impact on the people, that they do reach. And I wanted to encourage you to keep going. And because of something you actually told me, it was just an offhand remark, during our conversation where you interviewed me, where you mentioned to me that you actually looked into the Wim Hof Method, which is something that I speak about, a lot on social media, just because of the fact that I posted. So while not everyone who sees so this is a general message I want everyone to take away from this. While you're not going to get every single person who sees your post to agree with everything you're saying, while every single person who watches your podcast or whatever content it is you're doing might not get something from it, for the people that you do reach, it is worth it. And you never know how you may actually impact someone's life, just by putting your thoughts out there and expressing yourself. So that really did mean a lot to me, that
Thank
really,
you.
that you looked into it. So before we get into that, because I'm going to ask you, about that in a second, can you just tell people a little bit more about who you are, and what inspired you to start the Welcome to the Winner's Circle podcast?
Yeah. I'm going to be very honest. I literally woke up one day and was like, I want to do a podcast. And so it just kind of came to me to start it. I do listen to other people's podcasts, so that probably was in there somewhere in my subconscious too. I listen to folks like Jay Shetty, Sarah Prout, 19 Keys, like a wide variety, wide spectrum. And everyone has different styles. So when I decided to do mine, I was trying to narrow down like what was my particular style going to be? How was I going to present it? Was it going to be just like an audio platform medium and that's it? Or was it going to be visual? Like some people are starting to incorporate like you doing Zoom, some people incorporating like YouTube or just some other type of streaming, but then also having it be a podcast. And I decided that I wanted to keep it audio just for the fact that like I knew the messages that I wanted to put out there. I wanted people to really focus on what they were hearing and the messages. And then also I just thought it would be interesting if, one of the things about podcasting is that it's an audio experience. So I wanted to keep that audio piece with it and kind of take away the other sense of visual so people can really tap in and listen to what you are speaking about. So that's kind of like how I just kind of decided like to do a podcast. And then the name of it, I actually got kind of silly. I was watching a TV show that I like to watch called Legacy. It's like a spinoff from the Vampire Diaries and like the originals. But there's an episode where the twin sisters, Gemini twins, and something they were talking about in their dorm room or whatever. And the oldest, well, the blonde one, she was being like sarcastic because she could never get her powers right. And she, I don't know, she just always was like fumbling and messing up or whatever. And so she walks in the room and there was somebody else in there and like, I don't know, it was just sarcasm. And she's like, well, welcome to the winner's circle. But in that episode, it was kind of more along the lines of like, welcome to the loser circle, because like they could never just get anything right. Everything was like going wrong. Like everything they could think of was going wrong. And funny enough, I was watching the episode, that line stuck out to me and I actually started laughing. And then it just kept replaying like in my head. And, you know, late nights when infomercials come on TV at like, you know, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, it was some nights later, I had the TV on. I wasn't really listening to it. It was more just like background noise or whatever. And I seen an infomercial about like gambling and like lottery tickets and like casinos, but they just kept saying like, welcome to the winner's circle. So I was like, well, okay, this is going to be like the name of it. So
God kept sending you signs and kept flashing and kept telling you to do it. So
So it was no big like epiphany of like, oh, this is what I'm calling it. Like no big, huge, like life-changing thing like, oh, I got to call it this now. But it was like those just small, silly little things. And because I am, I'm very quiet, but I think when people get to know me, I open up and I do become like myself, where I'm more silly and more playful and childlike and those kind of things. And so because those things kind of made me laugh, I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely it. So yeah, that's kind of like how I came up with the podcast idea. That's kind of how I came up with the name of it. And then I just kind of started just recording the episodes and just kind of like letting it evolve in its own. You know, of course you do planning on your episodes, but also just leaving room for like mistakes and knowing that it's not going to be a perfect episode. There's going to be glitches and you just, I mean, whatever, something's going to happen. It's not going to be, you can't really be a perfectionist with it. So I kind of gave it space for that. So that way it could kind of like evolve to what it should be. And I think I found like a point where I've kind of like settled, not really settled, but it has like its own personality now. And it kind of has like its own rhythm and like its own flow. And I really just try to hold conversations that are meaningful, like that you're really thinking about certain things when you're speaking about them. And I want people, when they listen to it, to just walk away, you know, learning something new, having them think a little bit differently, think about things maybe they've never heard of before. So yeah, I just try to connect with people who really kind of, I know whose content will like fit that description, even if they're not like quote unquote like influencers and like popular people, but they have like an important message, or they're doing something important within the community. And I do my best. The main focus as well is just like really on our community as Black people, and just knowing that like we have a space where we can have certain conversations, and just so we can just have conversations together about different things. So yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense, man. And, you know, I think that's definitely important, you know, for the Black community in particular right now, because there's a whole lot of negativity, you know, like out there. And there's only so many different places you can go, you know, like for that positive message. So the more you put that out there, you know, the more you can influence the overall, you know, consciousness, you know.
Right.
That's good, man. All
right. So yeah, and then that's how I got to the episode with Zachy. You had touched on that one and how that kind of like inspired you a little bit. And it's funny how that had happened, because he just hit me up on Instagram just out of the blue. And he was like, I want to connect with you. And, you know, I like what you're about and like these kind of different things. And I was like, okay, sure. Like, let's do it. So we connected and we did the episode, and I like what he's about and what he posts. And one of the things that really stood out to me about his content is that, he posts inspiring and positive messages, all having to do with like your thinking and those kind of things. But he also does it in a way where he's highlighting Black men and Black moguls or Black high profile figures. And so it's more than just of like, you only see Black men in the entertainment industry portrayed in one light. And it's usually through like a rap song or something else, but they're not really showing the other side of them where they have like a knowledge or they have a lesson or like some sort of wisdom to share. And so I had liked his content, how it highlighted that for those people, and the messages that, you know, these high profile men are sharing are very important to hear. And so it's, you know, you have this image of Black men in the media and in entertainment who are portrayed one way, but not the other way. And I liked how he highlighted how they're portrayed in the other light, just sharing wisdom and knowledge. As other people who look at us from other cultures, other countries, or younger children growing up, they can see that like, okay, these Black men are not just like for entertainment and entertainment purposes only. They also have like a knowledge to share. And I think it could, you know, children coming up or boys coming up watching these things, it can kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It could kind of
they're all role models. They're all influencing
right,
people, like whether they
right,
realize it or not. And one thing Black people are realizing it more now, but Black people do tend to set a lot of the trends, you know, like in the world, you
definitely.
know, tend to be some of the most influential, you know, like in the media. Rap is pretty much the most popular music, you know, like on the
Yeah,
planet right now. Like I'll never forget, you know, when I was in France, you know, like a while ago, listening to the different radio stations, you hear French rap, and it just sounds so different
yeah,
because you don't understand. Like, I don't understand anything they're talking about, but I can
right.
still hear the same trap beats, you know, that you would hear
Yeah.
on like, you know, an Atlanta song or something like that.
It
So
was like that too when I went to Paris and I
yeah,
went to Belgium as well. And it
yeah,
was funny because I saw like, honestly, I saw white folks dancing a trap, but they were looking at it in the lens of like, this is popular.
yeah, yeah.
Whereas here it's a little different, but it goes to show you like the strength of that influence. And so when Zachy does that, like on his page, I had like that he highlighted that. So that was one of the key pieces where I was like, okay, like I definitely want to have an episode with him and like talk about that. So can I ask you, what did you gain from that episode with him?
I would say the biggest thing from it was you have to you can't let you know fear and the you know the possibility of failing you
Right,
know stop you from actually going after what it is that you want, and you have to go
right,
after what it is you're passionate about,
right,
because I got the feeling he wasn't happy, you know, with what he was doing before. You know, he spoke
right,
about that and how he wanted to, you know, have a bigger impact, you know, like on the world. And so he used his, you know, page and his Instagram to do that, which is something I can relate to because I do it a little bit, you know, on
right,
my social media right now. But the reason why I'm creating, you know, this podcast is to go a little bit deeper than
right.
just really sharing memes like all day. And that has its place. Don't get me wrong, because you
Yeah,
need those short, concise messages at times. But I feel like a lot of the topics, you know, that I'm most interested in, it's more than you can really explain in a meme. Like we just had an interview on your podcast, you know,
right,
the other day where I was talking about cryptocurrencies, hydroponic farming, the
right,
vaccine, and you can only get so much of that information into, you know, a 15-word meme. So, you know,
right.
yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I did it. But just touching on that point a little bit more about, you know, the importance of what, you know, Black men, you know, are putting out there in particular is funny because even though this is kind of a bittersweet day for me. And it
Mm-hmm.
all ties in because even though I'm recording the first episode of my podcast today, I'm also banned from Facebook as right now.
Oh, wow.
They just temporarily banned me for 3 days.
Oh.
Now, you see my Facebook, right? You see the
Yeah.
controversial stuff I post, right? However, I don't think it's that controversial. But
It's
the
not.
funny thing is, that isn't why they suspended me. You know why they suspended me?
Why? I'm curious.
I came across a post on Facebook, right? And the post was talking about accountability for women who complain about how men are trash, right? And it was a post by a woman essentially saying instead of women just going around and complaining about how terrible men are, it would probably be more productive for those women to work on improving themselves so they can attract whatever kind of men it is that they're looking for, right? That was
That's
the point of her
crazy.
post. Now, I responded to the post. This is what I said. I'm going to read to you verbatim what I said.
Yeah.
It's easier for most women to say men are trash, LOL. But great point. Dating scene is tough out here for everyone, man. That's all I said. And that comment got me suspended for 3 days.
Wow. That's insane.
That's weird. So,
People can't handle things these days, I feel like.
who? First of all, I want to
But
know
it
who.
wasn't even anything. It wasn't.
It wasn't anything bad. Like I didn't get on there and say, "Yeah, all women are trash. You know, it's their fault." Blah blah blah. I didn't say that. I
Yeah.
agreed with the gist of the post because the truth is, like there are a lot of trash dudes out there who probably do need to like work on themselves. I don't. That's
Right.
not the right way to describe it, but a lot of dudes with trash attitudes and a trash mindset.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
And I think the message behind the post, was definitely important. But it kind of taught me, all right, I can't put all my eggs in one basket. So
Right.
it's even more of a reason for me to go ahead and create this podcast. So I
Right.
can have multiple outlets in case one or two of them decide to ban me. So
Right. That's crazy.
yeah. Out of all the things they could have banned me for, that's what they banned me
I
for.
know. And you post a lot of stuff that you would think they would ban you for, but they actually don't. But now this one.
I'm very careful about the way I post though, because I always stick to the facts. If you notice what I said,
Yeah.
even though I might have more conspiratorial thoughts bouncing through my head, I don't actually put the most conspiratorial ones out there that I have no
Right.
backup. The only thing I'm posting is the stuff that you can go Google and verify for yourself to go look
Right.
at. So, but yeah, so it's interesting they didn't ban me for that. So,
That's
but,
crazy.
yeah. So, but okay, not to harp on that for too long because I know that dynamic and that topic we have a whole episode.
Definitely.
But so you are also part of the plant-based family.
Hmm.
I've been
Yeah.
I'm not completely plant-based. I still have a little bit of dairy and some eggs, maybe like once every now and then, but no meat.
Okay.
Personally, I haven't ate meat in I want to say about 3 years. I've been pretty much vegetarian. And occasionally when I'm on vacation, maybe I'll have a piece of fish. Don't report me to the vegan police, but but like that's it. Other than that, like when I'm at home, nothing but plants, vegetables, and all that. So tell me, how long have you been plant-based for? And what's that been like for you?
Oh. So, I've been plant-based officially since October 2018. And that just kind of came to me like out of a meditation that I was doing. I was going through a few different things at the time, and then I came out of meditation, and I guess, my spirit was just kind of like, do like a cleanse. Just go plant-based, do a cleanse and that kind of thing. So after that, I actually did like a week of just green juice with aloe and some spinach and things like that. Um, and then I joined, funny enough, one of my friends who I went to school with back in Boston. I grew up in Boston. So one of my friends from there, she actually invited me to a group on Facebook called Black Vegan Social. So I joined the group, and I just was, I don't know, I just kind of, it just connected with me, the things that we're posting, the founder of the group, Gigi, and then connecting with Gigi, and then just realizing as I was continuing on my plant-based journey, it opens up my palate to so much more. I'm big on like color theme when I prepare my foods and when I make my smoothies and things like that. So it allowed me to kind of be like, okay, typically, if you're not plant-based or anything like that, you'll have like your basics, rice, you've got your vegetables, and you've got like your meat or something on your plate. But with plant-based, there's such a variety of things you can do with your fruits and your vegetables, depending what you're having, your beans, your quinoa, things like that. So you could have like a raw kale salad with like cucumber and tomatoes. You can have a side of it of like quinoa that you have cooked, that you boiled or whatever. You can have like a sweet potato that you've either baked yourself in the oven or you've cut it up and sauteed it with like maybe some regular white potato with some onion and garlic, like scallion, like those kind of things. You can flavor it with like different herbs and things like that. So like there's so much more happening on the plate, which is happening for your taste buds and your palate. And then there's so much more color on your plate. And so it just is, for me anyway, it's more like, it makes it more fun. Like when I do my meals and I do them color themed, it's more fun and it's more interesting. And so being plant-based, that was one of the things. And then also just the benefits of just not having meat anymore. Before I became plant-based, I was already health conscious, where I was eating meat maybe like once or twice a week. It was mainly like just fish or just chicken. But then even that, just watching different videos about religion, how different religions view animals, even if they do eat them. The difference between slaughtering an animal for a meal and kind of like sacrificially like killing an animal for a meal. You know what I mean? Maybe how like some Muslims might prepare, chicken and things like that, So those kind of different things. Those are like pre-plant-based days. I was always like interested in watching videos on those things and just really taking a real look at like my health, realizing like, okay, I'm getting older. So let me just like really focus on my health. What am I really putting into my body? And just the benefits of just having like a plant-based diet, having like for a lot of fruits. I love mangoes. So like always having mangoes and then,
mango a day, pretty much. So.
Yeah. And so it was just like, and honestly, I felt better. Like I did. And also another piece that kind of contributed to that decision was in summer of 2017, I did Ramadan with one of my friends. And so I don't know if you're familiar with Ramadan or not, but it's 30 days and you pretty much can't have any type of intake or consumption from literally sun up to sundown. And so when you do break fast in the evening, when sun sets and you have like a meal or things like that, for me, it was, okay, this is what I'm having, breaking fast with, but I'm not going to go to McDonald's. I'm not going to go get a slice of pizza. I'm not going to go get processed foods or like some fried chicken or like barbecue ribs or things like that. Like, I'm really going to be mindful, like, okay, if I'm eating now and this is the time I can eat, let me put something worthwhile in my body so my body can feed off of it. So that was just some of those like habitual thoughts that kind of carried over time. So when I did make that decision in 2018, it's also something that like contributed to it. I will say.
Yeah, sorry, just to jump in. You touched on a lot of really good points. So we'll get back to that, but I just want to pause you for a second. You touched on so many good points. So first of all, a lot of people have a misconception, in their head that eating plant-based is boring. Eating plant-based is not boring. You have plant-based versions of nearly every cuisine, and there are many meals that you can substitute in, like a plant-based form of in one way or another, and still get, pretty much the same result, and sometimes even a better result. Like, I've never actually been a person who liked meatloaf, before I went vegan. However, I have a mean recipe for plant-based meatloaf that doesn't use any fake meat that uses all, like whole vegetables and all that. And I
Right.
make my own barbecue sauce, like, and trust me when I say it's the real deal. So a lot of people don't realize most of the flavor that you're getting, in a lot of these meals that you love are
Yeah.
made from plant-based ingredients. So
Yeah.
you can recreate almost all of those flavors when you're
Right.
eating a vegan meal. And a lot of the time, like I said, it might even come out better depending on what you're looking at. So you're not going to be able to replicate steak or lobster, like in vegan form.
Right.
However, you learn to appreciate, so much more and
Yeah.
such a wider variety, and you feel so much better,
Yeah.
like when you do it. So, and personally,
Yeah.
one of my problems is I don't eat enough salads. So even though
Mhm.
I'm vegetarian, I hardly ever eat salad. So if
Right.
anyone out there thinks that being vegetarian means that you're eating salads all day, every day, that's definitely not true. It really depends.
No, yeah, not at all. I've had friends who made fun of me and was like, I don't know what to get you. Do you want to eat grass? Like all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, you
Get that
can eat
all.
a lot of things when you're plant-based.
Exactly.
Um,
So,
but yeah, when I went plant-based officially, that was one of the things that actually kind of kept me staying with it was that it's not what I can't have, but it's what I can have. And I could have so much more because there's more variety and there's so many more things you can do. So that's kind of what kept it going. And then honestly, my spirit just kind of kept me going with it as well. And just seeing like the benefits of it, like um, I'm just not to be conceited or anything, but like hair growth, nail growth, skin clearing up, just like how I felt energetically, just how my body responded to it. Versus like, if you eat a whole bunch of food, like let's say you have a plate of food and you've got like a bunch of chicken or whatever on the plate, you feel really heavy and sluggish after. But like
mhm.
I felt like with my plant-based meals, I was full, but I was just full. I
And
wasn't extra
yeah,
sluggish. I didn't
you
get the
never get the
itis.
itis.
Right.
Exactly. The itis completely goes away. That's a thing of the past now, man. And I
Right.
mentioned this, a few minutes ago. Like, if I'm on vacation, occasionally, because it's harder to find, plant-based stuff depending on where you are. When I was in Middle Caicos, I had some back in Turks and Caicos Islands. I had
Okay.
some crack conch, peas and rice, and macaroni, and it laid me out. Like, like it laid me out. Like I was barely able to stay awake for the rest of the day, like after that, because it takes so much energy from your body to
Yeah.
break down meat. And I don't think people realize that the energy it's taken to do that, that can be used to do so much other things. Number one, your mind is sharper. You have more
Right.
energy. And one of the reasons why it's better for your immune system is because that energy that would be spent digesting, like meat, can actually be spent fighting diseases. And that's
Right.
and that's of course in addition to the fact that when you have a lump of chicken on your plate, the only nutritional value you're getting from that is protein. Whereas every plant source of protein there is has a
Right.
ton of benefits that goes along with it too. You're getting your
Right.
fiber, you're getting zinc, when you're eating nuts, and zinc is really important, in
Yeah.
these times because it helps with your immune system, preventing
Definitely.
coronavirus, all that. Chickpeas have, all kind of antioxidants, and all that inside of it. So the benefits it has for your body is literally out this world. And it's not only in your self-interest, but I don't think people realize, like a lot of people know that factory farming is bad, but when you actually look at some of the videos of what they're doing to these animals, like
Yeah.
it's terrible, man.
It,
Like,
it is.
uh,
I remember I saw
uh,
a video and I was like, what if this pig just woke up today? Like, I just want to run around. Like, he just can't even do it. And it
they
just is horrible. It's just the energy for me too. It's also like the energy piece of it.
exactly. You're taking energy from an animal that's been tortured its entire life, and
Yeah.
you're ingesting that, and you're putting that energy all through your body. So
Right.
on top of it just being bad for you nutritionally, like if you believe that animals, you know, are conscious too, which they are, like whether you believe it or not, that's just a fact. They are conscious. Like they're doing some terrible things, man. Like
Yeah.
like I watched a video the other day about them castrating pigs. You know, like in live time.
Mhm.
I watched another video about them burning all the hair, you know, off cows,
Mhm.
like udders and all that. So they're literally
Mhm.
taking a blowtorch and they're blowtorching these cows like udders. Like if for all the
Horrible.
women out there watching this, imagine if someone was blowtorching, you know, your breasts. That wouldn't be fun. So
No,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it's like, and you could
That,
go on for days about the cruelty that happens there. So it's terrible. I don't think it's good for you to be ingesting that kind of energy. The nutritional value is worse, and
right.
what it's doing to the planet is just terrible, man. So
Right.
there's so many benefits that go along to at least considering the lifestyle,
Right.
and going, even if you're not going to go all the way plant-based straight out the gate, at
Right.
least minimizing your consumption of meat to a couple meals a week, I promise you,
Right.
like you will feel different. So for anyone out there who's thinking about it, do it. Like do some
Yeah.
research. And one thing, you know, I would recommend to everyone is that they don't approach it with the mindset that let me think about all my favorite meals of meat
Right.
and try to figure out what plant I can put into that meal.
Yeah. No, that's not the right approach.
Because a lot of times it may not work like that. So you
Right.
have to be open to structuring your meals a bit differently than
Yeah, that you definitely have to. It will definitely take some experimenting with
yeah,
cooking and figuring out like how you like certain foods and fruits and vegetables prepared versus how you've traditionally always had them and that kind of thing. Yeah, definitely also too, like I feel like with being plant-based, like I said, it's like an energy thing too, a spiritual thing. Like whatever you're eating, whatever this animal felt in its last moments, you're actually eating that energy. Um, and it just isn't something that is not, it's not good for your energy as a person. And when you do have more of a plant-based diet, it's cleaner. It's like there's no extra attachments to it in a way.
exactly.
And so you're you're feeling a little bit better. Your energy is higher, just your thoughts are better. You know what I mean? You have a clear mind. It's not so much affected by everything else that's been put in your body. Um, so
Exactly.
yeah, that's kind of like why I went plant-based, how it was going in the beginning. Because I mean, I'll be honest, like I love curry chicken. Like I didn't go plant-based because I didn't like the taste of these things. You know what I mean? Like I love curry chicken is like my absolute favorite. I cooked it like all the time. But it was also the thought of like, okay, this is not something I really want to consume anymore. Now I definitely figured out how to do curry chickpeas so I could still have my curry.
I was
But
just
it was
about to say that.
like, yeah, so you know, you can try to substitute and figure out, but at the same time, I think when you walk into it, don't walk into it in terms of like replacements, but walk in
Exactly.
more in terms of like, well, okay, I can have more of this. What can I do with this surplus kind of thing and kind of just see where it takes you. But I've been plant-based since 2018. Um, I don't miss meat. I really don't. And if it's funny because if I go to the supermarket and they have the whole meat section, I can't stay in the area because the smell just really
Smell.
bothers me.
Yeah, it does hit you, man. And it's so funny, right? Because while I would say I'm neutral about the smell of like cooked meat, like, you know, I remember the
Mm,
flavors. I'm not going to sit here and say if I smell someone cooking meat, it's terrible. There's some smells that, yeah, even when it's cooked, it does get to me. But like the raw food section and the raw
yeah,
fish section, does not.
yeah. It's not the same experience at the grocery store anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And
luckily, you know, it can wear masks, but still it's not the same experience. And then even like my neighbor, like she cooks meat and stuff like that. And I'm always like, oh my God, because it's so strong now because I haven't had it in years, you know what I
yeah,
mean? So it's
yeah,
like, it's just out of me,
I
like
get you.
senses in all ways. So when I do, if I get a whiff of it, it's like I can just pick it up like that. And I'm like, oh
Yeah, yeah,
gosh.
yeah. Do it to yourself, man. Throw some chickpeas in there instead next time.
Right.
But
So,
on the curry part, I don't know if you ever tried the red Thai curry powder, but
no.
I actually mix a little bit of the red Thai curry in with my Jamaican curry, and trust me, the flavor's out of
Oh,
this world. So
I'll have to try that. I've never tried the red Thai curry. I've always just done the West Indies curry, like the yellow curry.
yeah. That's what I grew up on and all that. But one of my friends who was really disappointed, like when I went vegan because he
Yeah.
recognizes that I'm a chef, and he always said the curry chicken I made at one time when I was living over in Brickell, where because it's actually pretty hard to find the right red Thai curry powder, and
Okay.
the first time I made it, like he's not the type of person to pump someone up. I don't know if you know the dynamic between dudes, but most dudes aren't pumping each other up for no reason. We can't wait to roast each other. And he said it was literally the best curry chicken he ever had in his life. Talking about from any restaurant he's ever been to.
Wow.
Shout out to Justin. I found the red Thai curry powder again, and now I'm making it with chickpeas. So he's
Nice.
gonna make that. So yeah, man, try that out. But all great points. Now, in addition to you
Hmm.
being plant-based and
Right.
having done that for a few years, you're also a mother.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what that's like. Are your kids plant-based too?
Hmm.
How do they deal with the transition? How's that been for you?
Well, first, when I first became plant-based, I focused it more on me so I
Mhm.
can like get it kind of down packed in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
And then for them, I introduced it to them in terms of like the vegan mock meats. I call them like transitional foods because it's
Yes,
not the best because it's still processed, but
yes.
I'm not being a stickler. So yeah, for the kids, I would give them like meatless meals. I would say maybe like 3 nights out of the week.
Mm,
And then sometimes I would still make them like chicken, or if I wasn't doing chicken for them, I would do fish for them. I would get salmon and do salmon for them and those kind of things. Um, but they're kids, so they want pizza, they want hot dogs, they want chicken nuggets like every other kid. They want like those finger foods that they like. So I did do my best to get like, the organic Purdue chicken nuggets or
mm,
something like that. But just last year, actually, when the pandemic first hit, I started introducing them to the vegan the vegan mock meat. So the Gardein chicken strips and like the Gardein chicken nuggets and like all those kind of vegan processed foods. So they can feel as if like they have like a meat in a sense.
mhm,
They don't like it. They tell me that all the time. And
mm,
every time I'm making something, they're like, oh, is it vegan? Oh, I only want one chicken strip, like one strip of a chicken strip,
mm.
right? So they don't really like it at all. Um, so it's kind of like a mix for them right now because they are still kids and I want them to do something that they take an interest in. So I'm really at this point kind of just leading by example. My daughter is vegetarian. She just chose that on her own. And that was about a year ago. She chose on her own.
So your daughter is fully vegetarian, but with your sons, it's been
Yeah.
a little bit more
They
difficult.
have like a mix.
Got
So, but because I am plant-based, I mean, I don't really eat a lot of the vegan processed foods myself.
hmm
I probably can tell you, I didn't really start eating vegan processed foods like the frozen foods and like those meats and things like that until I want to
hmm
say last summer, the summer of 2020. So
Interesting.
even like from 2018, like I was just strictly plant-based. So vegan mock meats are new to me too. But because I have kids, I've kind of like, okay, like I'll get it for them. And then sometimes like I'll have a taste of it, but that doesn't make up my diet too much because it's still processed. But
Yeah.
so yeah, my daughter decided to be vegetarian on her own, which I thought was great. I didn't tell her to do it. She just kind of saw what I was doing and she saw like the healthy approach. And so she was like, I think I want to be vegetarian. So, that's what she wanted to do. And I supported her. So I said, okay, fine. And my other two, my boys, they were just kind of like, no, we want our food. Like we want our chicken, we want our ribs and things like that. But again, those things I give to them, but in moderation, just because of the health behind it. I do make a lot of smoothies at home or get like a lot of fresh juices. So I always incorporate that for them. So my thing is like, okay, if they're not plant-based or they're not vegan, but I want their plant intake to be more of what the other stuff is. So I'm always doing like smoothies or fresh juices or things like that, making them take a shot of this. I'm always boiling up like a root tea, like drink the tea. Like, I mean, they're honestly sick of me. I'm not even gonna lie, they're sick of me with all of it. But I'm like, you're gonna have more of this than anything else throughout your day, as long as I'm around, you know? So they give me like a little pushback depending what it is. Um, Definitely like, you know, on the weekends, like Fridays or Saturdays, I'm just kind of like, okay, if you guys want pizza, it's the weekend, go ahead and have some pizza, things like that. But I'm very mindful of what they're eating with that. So
Do they have any good vegan pizza options out there where you are? There actually is a really great place over here down in like Miami called Thatch.
mhm.
They have some amazing vegan pizza. However, it's definitely not as cheap as Domino's. You're gonna pay a little bit more
Yeah.
for it,
I
but
haven't
it's great.
I
Yeah.
haven't come across any vegan pizza spots here in Brooklyn. I'm pretty sure there is because it's Brooklyn, it's New York City. Everywhere is up on the vegan hip trend now, so there's got to be somewhere. But I also don't eat out a lot either. Just
Okay.
that's just me anyway, even before I was plant-based. So it's kind of like I'm not always out there looking for those things, but so I don't know if they're good vegan spots, but sometimes in the store I'll see like vegan frozen pizzas. I've gotten one point and I've tried it. I thought it was okay. And I was like, but I still ate it. The kids didn't like it.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna say, like, when it comes to a lot of those, like, frozen meals and all that, like, I can't
yeah.
tell you the last time, I tried one of those. But even with the vegan pizza, like, like when you find like a good spot,
Yeah.
like I'm only gonna get it if it's like ingredients I recognize. So if it's that super processed, like fake vegan cheese, for the most part,
Yeah.
I'm interested in that. But the place downtown called Thatch, they actually have like cashew mozzarella that they use
Okay.
exactly for the pizza. So it's all made in-house. You know
Nice.
exactly what ingredients are going into it, and it's
Nice.
pretty good. So
I'll have to that I make a note of that. So next time if I go to Miami, I'll know to go there. But I mean, I think as a parent with, being plant-based and with the kids and having them have like vegan products, it's something that is a little bit of a challenge, especially when it comes to like your finances, because the vegan stuff is more expensive, plant-based stuff is more expensive. Um,
and for
and
you to
just
spend
going
that
through.
money, them not liking it and don't want to eat it, it's like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And then just even buying a lot of the fruits and the vegetables because those are plants, but they still expire, within a couple of
Yeah.
days. So it's like if they don't finish off all the fruit, it's like all that fruit's gone to waste now and the money's wasted. So it is a bit of a financial thing. And it's also like a convenience thing because as adults, we can be like, okay, we can wait and cook our meal and take our time and have patience. But with kids, they want like a quick snack. Like they want to go in the cabinet, they want to get a snack, or they want like something quick and tasty and those kind of things. So sometimes there's a bit of a challenge with it. But I do my best to kind of like, okay, they're not gonna like everything. I was a kid once, I didn't like certain vegetables that now that I actually love, which is kind of odd. But
Avocado was one of those for me. I never liked
oh,
avocado as a kid, and then all of a sudden, one day, it just clicked.
yeah.
Now I'm guacamole all day. So yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it's the same thing. Like beets, I hated beets as a kid growing up. Now I love beets on like everything, and I put it in my smoothies and my juices. Like I just want beets, Or the same thing even for like mushrooms. I didn't start eating mushrooms until I was plant-based my whole life. I never wanted it because it just looked weird to me. But
Now, mushrooms are important. Then a lot of people, you get mixed reviews about mushrooms depending on
yeah.
who you talk to, because some people aren't used to the consistency. They're like, oh, that's why I could never be vegan. I don't like mushrooms. I'm like, well, hold on now. Not all mushrooms are created equal, and
Right.
that
Yeah.
really depends on where you're getting it from and how it's being cooked. Because
Right.
honestly, there's a place out on South Beach called Planta. They make the best chicken and waffles you could imagine, but instead of chicken, they use oyster mushrooms. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's like battered
Interesting.
and fried up. They make their syrup in-house with agave, instead of maple. So it's the alkaline version of it. So
Yeah.
actually completely alkaline mushroom and waffles. So I
Nice.
tell you, is real good. Is good. So you got all different kinds of mushrooms, man. You have the regular ones you see in the store, the portobello, the white
Yeah.
mushrooms, baby bella, but you also have lion's mane mushrooms, oyster
Right.
mushrooms, king trumpet mushrooms, reishi mushrooms. There's so many different kinds that you may not even encounter unless you actually make an effort to go vegan or vegetarian and look
Right.
at some of these different options because
Yeah.
just not thinking about it because there's no reason for you to incorporate oyster mushrooms in your meal if you eat meat because
Right.
you just don't use them like that much. But once you make the transition, you discover a lot more things you didn't know existed and different ways to cook them, and it
Yeah.
really opens your mind. And honestly, it's an exciting time because so many more different people are getting into the lifestyle now.
Right.
Like the menu is expanding. This is like the wild wild west right now for vegan food. Everyone's putting their own little twist on it. You're seeing more meals getting created, and every time I go out and look for more restaurants, the meals are getting more and more creative. So it really
Right.
is a good time to be looking.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think so with the kids, it's like the financial thing, it's their taste buds, what they like, what they don't like. And then I also feel like, I don't want to force them either. I want them to come to that decision on their own. So if I can incorporate all of it in a smoothie or some tea or things like that, I know they're still getting everything that they need. And then, we take vitamins and everything. So I really think about making it something, I don't want to turn them off from it.
Yeah,
So if
because
later down the line that they decide they want to do this, they're like, okay, yeah, I think I want to, like, I want them to come to it on their own.
it's so funny you mentioned that because I want to say I only really started reading more probably
Mhm.
like 3, 4 years ago, and my mom would always force me to read, like as a child. But
Yeah,
she made me read stuff that she liked, which wasn't
right.
necessarily, the same stuff that was interesting me. So I
Right.
almost viewed it as a punishment because she would make me read like when I was on punishment sometimes too. So it's like I
Yeah.
never came around to it. And because it was being pushed on me, I didn't like it as much. So it's definitely, a delicate balance to walk right there. So you're right about
Yeah.
that. But as far as it goes
Mhm.
with kids, a lot of the time it even depends like on the kid itself. So that's been your
Yeah.
experience. But one of my friends who thinks I'm crazy,
Hmm.
for going vegetarian, he's convinced himself because he has a science background. He's convinced himself that a vegetarian diet or a vegan diet isn't actually what's best for you. He thinks the best diet is a Mediterranean diet, with a little bit of vegan,
Okay.
incorporated too. And while the Mediterranean is far better than the average American diet, like cutting that completely out your system really is beneficial. But his son actually won't eat any meat. And
Interesting.
he loves steak. He loves, like pork chops, lobster and all that. But his son is young, so he's not too old yet. But anytime they try and give him meat, he won't eat it. So
Right.
sometimes it really depends, on the kid. And then my two god kids, um, their dad is vegan, completely plant-based too. um they they like a lot of vegan food, but their mom isn't vegan. They still like a little bit of chicken from time to time too. So
Right.
it's really a mix. So and a lot of the time it depends how early on you introduce it to them, to the best of my knowledge too. And it's like if they're already used to one thing, if they already have a bunch of friends and, you know, the friends are eating all this and they get this from their friend's house, then, you know, I'm guessing that would make it a bit more challenging when you tell them, don't do that anymore, do this.
Right.
So it is a balance to walk, you know.
Yeah.
I agree with you there. So all right. So as far as how being vegan has impacted your dating life, um, before we transition into that,
Yeah.
I actually found a really interesting article that I'm just going to read a quick excerpt from, you know, before we get into this. So
Okay.
just to kind of introduce the topic and tell me, you know, what you think about this. So
Okay.
a recent survey found 57% of vegans report having sex 4 times a week. Only half the participants who identified as meat eaters said they had sex twice per week. A staggering 92% of vegans also described their love lives as great, with more than half saying they always have the energy for sex. With meat eaters, the percentages dropped to 79 and 35%, respectively. Speaking to the Mirror, a spokesperson for Illicit Encounters, which is the app that ran this survey of 1,000 people, 500 vegans, 500 meat eaters, said vegans are masters of seduction, it would appear. Our statistics don't lie, and vegans eat foods known for their aphrodisiac qualities, such as ginseng and aniseed. But I've never heard of a rack of barbecue ribs or lamb shanks turning someone on. And end quote. So, and just to kind of reiterate, you know, one of those points we said before about the itis, we don't really get the itis, so you don't have that sluggish feeling that would prevent you from engaging in some of the more explorational aspects of life, you could say. So yeah, what do you think of that quote? Any truth to it in your opinion?
I I would say, yeah, I think so. I mean, just because the itis piece of it, you're
Mhm.
not feeling sluggish. Excuse me. You're not feeling sluggish after you eat. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to be in the mood for your person, and
Yeah,
you're going to want to do things. You're going to actually be active during the session, and you're probably not going to get tired as easily. Um, I think also too, another piece of it is that when you are plant-based, you taste better for your person.
definitely
So,
agree with that.
um, yeah, I think in terms of tasting better, you want to continue on with what's happening. And I think also too, the piece of it, just that, you know, a lot of people always associate like being plant-based with a higher consciousness and like more spiritual and like woo-woo and things like that. But I think there is definitely a truth to that piece of it too. And I think that if you have a partner, well, both partners who are plant-based and they're in a relationship, or just two people who are plant-based dealing with each other, um, they're more they're more in tune with each other, I think, in a sense. And with that is a more heightened and more deeper like sexual experience.
Yeah,
And, you know, I think when you have those experiences, you definitely want to have more of them. So I think there's a few different levels you can look at that from. But I think like the surface level of it is just the fact of like not having the itis and just having energy to want to actually perform
yeah,
during that session, during that experience. But I think when you look at it from like more spiritual level and things like that, like it does evolve to a little bit more. So I kind of agree with that statistic.
yeah, definitely. And it's funny because the last person you know, who I was in a relationship with, you know, a great person, but it didn't wind up
Yeah.
working out. But it's funny because she made a joke one time saying, oh, you know, we get along so good, we're like two peas in a pod. And I told her, well, it's more like a pork chop and a pea, you know, since since you don't eat you know, vegetarian and all that. Yeah, that was one of my ways of trying to, you know, give her that little nudge to take that extra.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that was fun. But you touched on, you know, a lot of important points there. I would
Yeah.
say specifically when you think about the fact that fruits and vegetables actually hydrate your body in
Hmm.
ways that you won't get from only eating water. And that's because of the soluble and insoluble fiber that you're running through your gut, which allows for water to get absorbed in different ways. So that's one of the reasons why, one of the benefits of going plant-based is it reduces aging, because your skin is going to be more hydrated. All the energy, extra energy you have just kind of slows down that aging process. And that hydration definitely has an impact, on your sexual functions, whether you're a man or a woman, because like you said, that's going to impact the taste of everything. And for men specifically, I don't know if anyone out there has seen the movie Game Changers, but I'd encourage everyone out there to go watch that. But there's a specific point in the movie where they get to talking about erectile dysfunction, and how being plant-based actually impacts that. And one of the things being plant-based does is it increases your blood flow. So if you're a man, you want to have good blood flow, that's going to help you in a few different areas. It helps you in, number one, erection strength, and erection duration. So the way they proved it in the movie was they took some healthy football players, NFL Dolphin players, right? And they studied them for 2 nights. They hooked up a little, circular thing around their male parts to measure the erections throughout the night. And what they found was the first night when they gave them a regular Chipotle burrito with steak or chicken or what have you, everyone got what they wanted. And the next night they gave them a plant-based burrito where they used the plant-based meats, instead of those traditional meats. And they found their erections were twice as long throughout the night, and also like nearly 3 times as hard, like throughout all that too. Because as men sleep, it's kind of just going up and down all night. So it had a direct measurable impact, and that's only off one meal. That's only they still did whatever they wanted throughout the day, but then before they went to sleep, they had a plant-based meal versus a vegan meal, and those are the results you saw. So take that and imagine, instead of it being just the meal before you go to sleep, this is what you're consuming all your life for all different meals. There's no doubt that is going to have a cumulative impact, especially over time. So you want to be performant, into your 60s, 70s, 80s and all that, start eating that chickpeas. That's all I can say. So
I was gonna say, I've been seeing a lot of articles related to that ED with males, and males' health, and in regard to like a plant-based diet. I've been seeing that a lot more actually. It's kind of interesting. I haven't really like researched too much about that. When I was plant-based, I kind of focused like just more on like the women aspect of it, but I think it also does go hand in hand to know like the male aspect of it too, because it does, just talking about sex in general, like when you sleep with someone, their compatibility with your own body as a female, like is it going to throw off your pH, like different things like that. And so it does matter.
And a lot of dudes don't realize men have a pH too. Like the stuff you're putting out there, that has a flavor, that has a pH too. So it's like, depending on what you eat, that's going to impact the taste, the smell, and the chemical makeup of, what you're putting out there. So
and what your person is receiving and how their body is going to react to it. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. So it all ties in together.
I made a joke like when I first got, they know it's good for the lady juices. So I was always posting like the pineapples in the morning, the mango juice or the mango smoothie. And it was just like, you want to stay juicy for your person and want to taste nice. If that doesn't motivate you, I don't know what will. So I think,
you want to taste like mangoes or salt beef stew or something like that. You want to taste like that.
I think if people also too are like, oh, we don't want to be plant-based, we don't know what we're going to eat. Like, well, guess what? Here's one of the benefits. Like, how could you not want that? Everybody wants that because everybody wants to be admired and desired. So
One of the craziest things I actually saw, they did a survey, like amongst men, and they asked men, like, would you rather have a shorter lifespan or give up meat? And something
Right.
like 70% of men said they'd rather have a shorter lifespan than give
That's
up meat.
crazy.
It is crazy. And the thing is, right, we live in a society where the marketing behind meat has
Yeah.
made men truly believe that eating meat is masculine. Like you
Yeah,
got
that's
on the
true.
barbecue, grilling up your ribs, grilling up your pork chops and all that.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
manly, to do that. Whereas you can still barbecue, a lot of vegan food too, man. I saw like a kebab where they put, a couple different kinds of mushrooms on there. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different things, you can do, for
You
vegan
could do, I've
barbecue.
seen people do like pumpkin on the grill. You could do corn, like the corn on the cob thing. Like there's so
Yeah.
much you could do.
Exactly. So it's just funny how, it's been associated with masculinity.
Yeah.
However, if you want to perform better in bed, then your
Right.
best bet is to actually give up the meat. So
Right.
somehow marketing has drilled it into people's heads that
Yeah.
the opposite effect of what you're looking for is
Right.
going to happen if you eat meat. So, it's funny when you really look at the impact on what it's doing to your body. So.
Definitely, just a little off topic, like with the marketing piece. I was chatting with a friend one point. I went to IHOP and I got hash browns.
Mm-hmm.
And so when IHOP prepares their hash brown, it literally looks like a big splat on a plate, but it's like potatoes.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this really a hash brown? It looks so sloppy. But the marketing aspect behind it in your mind is that you're so accustomed to a McDonald's hash brown that's like perfect rectangle. That's just what you think a hash brown is. So, anyways, yeah, I thought it was funny when it comes to like that whole marketing piece with food and just like that whole subconscious influence on your mind and like how you're so impressionable about certain things or whatever. That was what came to mind when you were saying that. And it was a
Exactly.
funny conversation. So,
And the marketing is so powerful, right? Because think about it, as kids, you remember seeing those commercials telling you that if you want to grow up big and strong, then you got to
right,
drink your milk every day. And they told you,
right,
oh, milk gives you big bones. It has calcium and, it helps you grow. Well, what they don't tell you is they actually add the calcium to that
yeah,
milk a lot of the time. And they're getting it from plant-based sources 9 times out of 10. So
right,
cut out the middlemen and go straight, to the plant-based source to
right,
get your calcium.
definitely,
So there's and I even hear people saying, oh, you have to eat meat because there are certain nutrients you can't get, like naturally from plants. There's literally nothing out there that you can't get from plants. Like I hear a lot of people
yeah,
speaking about omega-3s and omega-6s. Well,
mm-hmm.
hemp. Hemp has both omega-3s and omega-6s.
Yeah,
I don't have any problem getting enough protein. I'm not exactly, like Arnold Schwarzenegger over here, but like I do get enough protein. So you get your omega-3s and 6s. You just gotta make sure you're thinking outside the box and you're planning your diet accordingly. And yeah, you get the right stuff. And most people are deficient of that anyway because the main source of it is from like the main non-vegan source of it is fish oil. And no
right,
one's having fish oil on a daily basis. You have to go out
right,
your way to go get the fish oil. So instead of going out your way to go get the fish oil, just get some hemp protein instead. And then you
right,
have your omega-3s and your omega-6s. So I mix my hemp protein with my hemp chocolate milk. So double
right.
up, and it tastes really good. So
I have to try that hemp protein. I haven't tried that. I kind of just get my protein from like beans. I eat a lot of the lentils,
yes.
and like chickpeas, and like I just have a lot of beans sometimes too. So that's kind of where my proteins come from. And then sometimes I'll go to the store and get like a protein bar. But
Yeah.
for the most part, it's really just through like the naturals and
Yeah.
seeds and things like that.
There's so many different ways, you can make beans and all that too. You can make it
Hmm.
in a curry, you can make it in a stew, you
Right.
can make a stir fry with it, like there's so much different stuff you can do. In fact, I usually don't even eat rice. I eat quinoa instead of rice. So
Yeah.
quinoa has protein in it
Yeah.
already. The beans have protein in it already. I'm Caribbean. I'm from Turks and Caicos. I was born in Jamaica, but I'm from Turks and Caicos, so I like my peas and rice. So what I did was I took the peas and rice recipe. I substituted quinoa in instead of the rice, and now I have something that tastes just as good as peas and rice, but instead of all those carbs, I get a lot more protein. I get a lot more fiber. There's still a little bit of carbs in it too, but it's not refined carbs like how you get in the white rice. So
yeah,
so there's a
definitely.
lot of different ways to get that protein. So yeah. So with that being said, tell me, Tamika, how has the when you started looking into the Wim Hof method, what did you find? And have you tried it? And how's it been?
I think with that one, the Wim Hof method, it was definitely learning about like the different breathing techniques. And I know there's a piece in there regarding like cold showers. I have not done the cold shower.
We're in New York. It's a little bit colder up there, so I know it might be.
Yeah, I'm not motivated to do cold shower, to be honest.
Most women say that. Most people say that, but especially women say that. So
yeah, but yeah, I don't know when I'll be motivated to it, but I know that is a piece of it. Some of the breathing techniques, just like holding your breath and like letting it go, and like those like what is it? Those strong releases, like breath releases and those kind of things. Those I do that maybe like once every other week, to be honest, because most of my meditation, I just focus on like really breathing in and breathing out, doing really deep breaths. But when it comes to Wim Hof and like those intentional, like hard breaths and things like that, I kind of do it every other week. It does make me a little lightheaded sometimes when I do it. So I don't do it all the time. But I just feel like as long as I'm doing it at some point, I think I'm good, because I'm doing basic meditation anyway, or basic like breathing exercises anyhow too. But that is something definitely that, like I said, if you're not doing it every day, but you're incorporating it in your routine on some sort of consistent schedule or a consistent basis, it will have a good effect on you. So
no, definitely. Like right after doing it, when you're first starting out, you'll definitely get, that little bit of lightheadedness. But just so you know, if you do it, consistently and you do it every day, that lightheadedness that you're feeling, that actually doesn't happen. And it's more of like a sense of lightness. So you literally feel like now when I do it, I feel like I'm floating for a quick second when I get up. And it's not like I'm about to fall down floating, but it's like you just feel light. Like you're not lightheaded, but your whole body like feels light. So I feel really good. I'm really in control. But there's actually a specific like video on YouTube where he goes through like all the steps, and what it is, it's 30 breaths in and out. And on the last exhale, you hold your breath on the exhale for at least a minute. That's without any air in your lungs. And then after you hold your breath, you take a deep breath in as deep as you can, and then hold that for 15 seconds and then let loose. And then you repeat that process 2 more times. So you have 90 breaths in and out, like overall, with those 3, long holds and all that. But I definitely encourage you to look up that one specific, like exercise he does. It only takes about 11 minutes when you're following along with the video. But when I tell you, you really do feel the difference. Like I don't need to drink coffee anymore. I don't need any caffeine or anything like that, because it instantly energizes you. I do it before I go to the gym. You're fully awake after that. And when you do it over time, that breath hold you're doing, what it does is it gets your adrenaline pumping. And one of the side effects of adrenaline is it also activates your immune system. And that's one of the reasons why, it strengthens your immune system. So
I'll have to incorporate it more closely versus like every other week.
Exactly. And if you want to check out a book that kind of
Okay.
talks about all the
Put it in
different
my
kinds of
phone.
it, it's called Breath by James Nestor. So,
Okay.
check
Put in my notes.
yeah, do that. So, but anyway, we've had a pretty decent, conversation. We touched on a lot of important topics. And I gotta say, I think you were a great guest to have on my
Oh,
first
thank
episode.
you.
And you're a big part of the reason why this podcast has come to fruition. So a lot of different
Oh,
people have
thanks.
mentioned the idea to me, but the way everything's turned out, I can definitely say, you had a influence in getting this whole thing started. So,
Oh, I appreciate that. Wow, that means so much.
yeah,
I didn't realize that.
oh,
I
no,
know
so,
briefly after we recorded the episode for my series, but I don't know. I think for me, before I started mine though, I was thinking about it for a little bit and then I woke up and I was like, oh, I want to do it. But I would just say like, yeah, definitely just do it. I've learned just through life experiences that the point where you feel like, I'm not going to say uncertain, but uncertain, or you feel, I don't know, like, how you get that nervous feeling a little
mm,
bit. When you feel that way, that's the point you should do it. Because I think that's the point where intuition is really speaking to you. Um, and you just go for it.
yeah,
And then you
just,
just know that it'll work out. And then you'll just do the steps to make it work and then it'll work out. So I think you had posted it in your stories the other night and I was like, yeah, just do it, like just go ahead and do it. And the kinks, it'll work out. You know what I'm saying? So I think I'm glad that you're doing it. I feel really good and thank you for the opportunity for having me like on this as your first episode, kind of like your launch episode for it. And I think a lot of people will tune in. You have a lot of great things that you have to talk about and that you have to share. And everybody everywhere will get the message,
thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. And, it's been an idea, I toyed with, for a long time. People have mentioned it on and off to me, but the way how everything just kind of played out,
Hmm.
like God was clearly telling me, like, now is the time because
Yeah.
I got Dr. Peter McCullough, who's one of the
Yeah.
most influential doctors in this whole COVID-19 crisis, to agree to do an interview with me. And I really did it to kind of bring a different perspective to people of Turks and Caicos because I
Right.
do have, a little bit of a decent sized voice over there, especially considering the size of the country. So I
Right.
wanted to get someone credible, like on record.
Yeah.
The weekend before I did that, I actually ran into Riza Islam,
Yeah.
from the Nation of Islam, and we had a pretty long conversation, like over
Good.
there while before I bought his book. And he agreed to also do a podcast. So I've been
Nice.
reaching out to his people, trying to like organize the exact time to do it. While I was there, I connected with a Hebrew Israelite actually for the first time. That was my first time having like an extended
How was that
conversation.
conversation?
It was great, actually. It was really
No,
interesting.
I know. It's just a joke that they're kind of different, but
Yeah, I know. So, like, like, I thought some of the historical things, they were bringing up, but he was
Yeah.
bringing up was really interesting. So, I'm going to be
Mm,
inviting him on, like for an episode too. So,
nice.
um, and there are a few other different people I already have lined up. Some people from Turks and Caicos, some people from America, and I think I have a
Mm,
nice mix of guests I'll be able to bring to the table. So the fact that all this was happening at the same time,
yeah.
and I was also reading this book right here, which is one I'm on right now,
Yeah.
called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Um, it touches on that same topic about achieving your dreams and how meditation and manifestation, incorporates into that. And
Hmm.
literally the night before, the night I was supposed to interview Dr. McCullough, it got delayed. And I reached a point in the book where it was directly talking about how writing your goals down and writing your vision down and how it's going to make you feel, and then incorporating that into a specific meditation technique actually helps you bring that energy out into your whole aura and put that out into the universe too. So the timing on everything was just telling me this is what you got to do, and this
Right.
is the time you got to do it. So right now, the only thing I'm waiting for is my logo to get finalized. I
Awesome.
already have a lot of the channels set up. Once the logo is finalized, I'm going to go ahead and start uploading everything. So
That's
um,
awesome. I
I
think one of the things too is that you're getting Black men from different different lenses. So you have Brother Islam from the Nation of Islam, yourself, you have the Hebrew Israelite gentleman. And even though it's always this thing about like with Black people in the light, you know, if we're not the same religion or we're not of the same practice, that we can't sit down and have a conversation about important things, or we can't make an impact, we can't work together as a team. And I think that's always been something against us. And that's what's highlighted a lot in our community when it's time to
there's
come
too much
together and
division. Yes,
right, and to make a change. So I think it's important to have like these conversations with Black men who are not like you, to show that we can have these conversations and still come to solutions, or we can just have conversations and brainstorm together. And people need to see that, you know, whether it's on a mainstream level, whether it's just community, like locally, wherever, they still need to see that, because it's just been everywhere that we're so divided. And I think it's time that we need to show that we're not.
that's such an important point because while that problem, has been particularly bad, even in the Black community,
Yeah,
for a long time, what we're seeing is like as a country, America overall is
yeah,
becoming really polarized, where people will not speak to anyone else who doesn't agree with them
right,
100%. You have a situation where Democrats all think that Republicans are lost causes and you can't speak to them.
right,
And you have Republicans that think that Democrats are all communists and, you
right.
can't speak to them. So, like, one of the things I'm making an effort to do is to speak to people, who I don't agree with on everything, but still showing we can have respectful conversations. I want to
Yeah.
and that's actually one of the reasons why I named this show the Jay Scott Ascension, which is kind of
Right.
a play off the Joe Rogan experience, because
Oh,
Joe
okay.
Rogan is my favorite podcaster, and he brings on people from the far right and he brings on people from the far left. So he has a very wide range of guests who I don't think he agrees with everyone, he brings on his show with. Like, I don't think he agrees with everything on anyone he brings on his show. So there's always going to be points of disagreement.
Right.
But one thing he's been able to do is humanize like people who you don't agree with, because the way he does his interviews is
Yeah.
very conversational. You really get to understand, who these people are, how they got, their line of thinking, and it opens you up a bit more, to people who you may not agree with. So,
Right.
like this show, I do definitely, want to focus on Black issues, because that's the community, like I'm in right now. But it's not only going to be,
Yeah.
about Black issues. I want to speak to people from all walks of life, who I
Yeah.
may disagree with. And I I I want to just encourage people to, even if you think the person that you're looking at or you're dealing with is doing it for the wrong reasons, give
Right.
them the benefit of the doubt until they give you a real reason to not like give them the benefit of the doubt any
Yeah.
longer, and just realize that we're all subject to the same subconscious programming, and while we're still subject to that program, we all grow up in different environments, and environments for the most part, shape who people are. Like, there is a genetic aspect to it too, I'm sure, in some situations, but like it's mostly your environment and where you grow up in that shapes your opinion. So there's a
Right.
reason why most people born in the Middle East are Muslim, whereas most people born in the country in the West are Christian. So
Right. Yeah.
that's
There
so
was one thing I did want to add. It was a funny little story I wanted to add to the dating piece, the vegan, dating vegan.
yeah.
Um, there was one time a gentleman was in my inbox and we were actually kind of hitting it off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, it's always good to ask questions. So I
Yeah.
asked him, I said, what do you like to do like on your free time? And he's down south,
Mm-hmm.
and he said he likes to hunt. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, you like to hunt? And I was like, so right then and there, I just knew it wasn't going to work. One, because I just feel like, it might just sound cliche because I'm plant-based, don't kill the animals. But also, too, it was just like, well, if you like to hunt animals for fun, like when cars outside are so loud, when does it turn into you like to hunt people for fun? So I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to go in that situation because all it is like a flip of a light switch before you try to hunt me. So I just kind of like left it at that. I honestly, like, I ghosted him after that, but I felt it
You're
was
too good at
valid.
tracking things, when he wants to go find them and all that and get aim. I got
Yeah, but it was kind of funny because I was like, wow, that was the first time I ever kind of like didn't pursue anyone any further or take it any further based on like a hobby or like a hobby that had to do with like my lifestyle in a way. It
you.
was
I
kind
get
of
that.
different. So
I get that. No, I get that. So it's funny you mentioned that. And again, like I definitely understand where you're coming from and why you said, you don't think that would have worked. The only thing I can say is if someone's going to eat meat,
yeah,
then eating meat that doesn't go through that whole factory farm, like, process, like I can respect more. Like if someone
right.
is actually hunting their meat, I can respect that more. Now, that doesn't mean you want to be in a relationship with that person because if
Mhm.
that's what they're doing for fun and they're going to want you to come out and, like,
Right.
when they're doing it
Join in.
and you gotta wash the clothes, like when they're done, like, and there's a animal blood all over it, like, that's something different. But like I can say, like factory farming, like that's the worst, man. And it's funny because like I went fishing, like when I went back home in Turks, just because it was something I grew up doing, and I did it one time, and I was just thinking to myself, like, what am I doing here? Like,
Put
what?
it back. Put it
Yeah,
back. Throw it back in the water.
yeah, but it's like as you grow up doing it, so it's part of the
Right.
culture. So I can picture
Yeah.
myself doing it again the next time my friends are going fishing and they invite me out. I'm
Yeah.
probably not gonna throw a line out. I just had to do it like one last time, like before I gave it up.
Yeah. But I think like now that it's funny because when I was first plant-based, I was like, oh, he doesn't have to be plant-based. He doesn't have to be vegan. But as I started getting more into it and just seeing like when it comes to the sex and things like that, or just when it comes to just the differences in how we eat and like how we kind of live, I
Mm,
realized that somebody who is maybe not 100% plant-based, but quote unquote like health conscious
yeah.
and leaning towards that or kind of like that will be so much more easier for me to deal with versus somebody who isn't, just for a lot of different reasons. So I wouldn't knock somebody though, like if
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
not like, no, oh my God, no, 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 no. But I would definitely be thinking about like things like, okay, like if this goes somewhere, like, and I'm cooking meals, what does this
mm,
look like? Am I cooking two
mm,
meals in one night? I don't know if I want to
mm.
do that. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. It's so
So,
funny you mentioned that because, I definitely would say I'm the same way. Someone doesn't need to be completely vegan or plant-based for me to like date them. However, one thing I noticed is that people like one funny thing I've noticed, right? When I first start talking to like, like a new girl, and like we're talking about different kind of things we like, and when the diet issue comes up, as
right.
soon as I tell people that I'm vegetarian or vegan, I lie to you not, about 80% of girls out there will say, "Oh, I'm pescatarian." And then you realize after about a couple, maybe 10, 20 minutes of talking to them that
Yeah.
they're not pescatarian either, but
Yeah.
they like fish. So they're telling you
Yeah.
that they're pescatarian because they
Yeah.
want you to think, I'm kind of close. I'm kind of close to it. But
Yeah.
they're really not pescatarian.
It definitely is. It definitely has turned into like a status as well. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
because people feel like if they tell you they're a status like pescatarian or vegan or somewhat or whatever, it adds points or like, puts them in a good light. And in a sense, I can see why they would think that because you're really taking into account like you're being mindful of what you're putting into your body and
yeah,
different
yeah,
things like
yeah.
that. So it puts you in a different light. So I could see why people would do that. But it's funny to see people do that and
Yeah,
just
and it's
kind of,
like, yeah, and it's like, and whenever I tell them, I'm vegetarian, like, well, about half the time it doesn't even really sink in, because like
yeah,
they'll 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 ask me, so you don't eat fish, you don't eat like chicken or anything like that? Like, nah, like it's all dead flesh to me. So like
yeah,
when I use that term, some people get offended, but that's just what it is. And
yeah,
they want to come up with a way to do the same thing like to a vegan person, but the best they can do is say you eat grass all the time. But
yeah,
even that doesn't have the same like image as dead flesh. So
right.
people, they really don't like when you use that term dead
Yeah.
flesh. So it's funny.
And
But
that's happened to me
yeah,
too. Like I'll go somewhere and I'm like, oh, I'm plant-based. So they'll be
yeah,
like, okay. And they're like, well, do you want some fish? And I'm like, no, no, I'm
yeah.
plant-based. So like I don't eat it. Fish is meat. Fish doesn't grow out the ground and fish is
Exactly.
meat. So I can't, I don't eat fish or whatever. Or they'll, do you want shrimp or things like that? And it's funny because people associate meat as like chicken, beef, like the red meat, and they associate seafood in its own category, which it
Yeah.
is, but it's
But it's
still,
just meat from the sea. That's all it is. It's still
yeah,
meat. So and I like how you said it's a status thing because
yeah,
not only
definitely.
not only did they realize, all right, well, it's slightly healthier, like than beef or whatever, but because fish and seafood is also expensive, I also feel like it can be a little bit of a flex sometimes. So
Yeah,
they tell you, oh,
definitely.
I only eat the best. I only eat, caviar and fresh salmon out the waters of Niagara or something like that.
Right. Something
So
crazy.
yeah, something crazy. So yeah, it's funny seeing the different reactions when you're talking to people. But I would agree, even as far as like logistics go, like it's really hard to have a relationship with someone that's at least not open to eating a lot of that vegetarian food. Because
Right.
if when you go out, like you want to have like some chicken or steak or anything, even though I personally would prefer it, if you took a moral stand and if you dedicated
Mhm.
yourself to making sure you have that self-discipline to do
Right.
what's best for you and honestly for the world, not just for you, but honestly for the
Mhm.
world. Had that self-discipline, that's a big positive, for me. But
Right.
again, no one's perfect. So I can't sit here and demand that someone goes completely vegetarian or vegan
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, no.
relationship with them. But if they're not even open to, eating some of that food, and that's why when I take people out, like on a first date now, I on purpose pick a restaurant that's 100% vegan because as
Ah,
yeah, because as a man, you have the ability to dictate what the first date is going to be most of the time because you're
true.
the
That's
one
true.
all that. So I always, and it's going to be your idea. You have to, say, so would you like to go out? You got to come up with
Right.
a restaurant and all that. So I always pick a restaurant that's all vegan and I gauge their reaction. Like I had one girl tell me that, she wouldn't go to an all vegan restaurant and she wanted to go to a
Interesting.
steakhouse and all that. Never took her out because I'm like, all right, if you're not at least going to be open to the
Yeah.
idea of it, even though you're beautiful, even though you have other things and all that going for you, if I'm
Right.
looking for someone to build with, and
Yeah.
that's just going to be a fight, like all
Later
the
on,
time,
it'll
like
come
every
up.
day. So why waste my time like dealing with
Yeah.
someone who's not even open to like that kind of thing? So
Yeah. It definitely comes up in other ways too later on down the line. So
yeah,
it's one of those things. I'm not hardcore yet. I don't know if I should
yeah,
even say yet, but I have noticed that from being first plant-based up until now,
yeah,
my preference has shifted more towards like I would prefer them to be plant-based
yeah,
or
definitely.
close to it or health conscious or something like that versus in the beginning where I was like, no, they don't have to be, like, you know, whatever. But then as like I was experiencing different guys who weren't, and I was, just different things, and like the thought processes, and just like eating, and you know, those kind of things, it was just different. And I gradually was like, okay, we need to have like more of a shift to
Exactly.
someone who's more compatible.
And one thing that a lot of people don't think about too is a lot of times there's exceptions to the rule, right? So no rule is 100% perfect, but a lot
Right.
of times when you go to a restaurant, the vegetarian or vegan options on the menu are
Yeah.
not the actual draw to the restaurant. So they
Yeah.
don't put a lot of energy and effort into
No.
those meals because they know their customer base isn't going to be
Yeah.
vegetarians and vegans. Their customer base is the
Right.
people coming for the fish sandwich and the chicken sandwich and all
Right.
that. So they
Yeah.
put all the energy into making sure that's perfect, but they take whatever leftover vegetables they have from the other stuff and they try and make a vegan meal with it. And usually, you know, at best it's edible, but most of the time it's just not
Right.
great. So if you want to go out on a date and both of you guys, you know, want to enjoy like good food, if you're dating someone who is not open at all to
Right.
like any vegetarian food, like you're just setting yourself up for either constant arguments or constant disappointments. Like either you go with the flow and go to restaurants that may have good non-vegan options but have crappy
Right.
vegan options, or you have to fight with the person you're going out with about
Right.
whether or not you can get them to eat a vegetarian meal just one time. So you know,
Yeah.
there's exceptions to the rule, but it just makes life so much easier, you know, when both people are on the same page there.
Yeah, definitely. But one more thing I'll add to that.
Yeah.
It is, and also too depends on your location and if you are in a food desert. I've taken that into account, like meeting, if I've met up with different guys going on dates who weren't necessarily plant-based or vegan. It's, you know, noticing like, okay, is this location like where we're supposed to meet? Are we in like a food desert? Or is
Yeah.
it really a place that has like plant-based options? And so that's also something like I take into account too, because just being plant-based and traveling, I like to travel a lot, and traveling in different places, you just come across places that don't have those options. And
Yeah.
that's just by default. And that's just because the population there is not plant-based. So why would they have it? It's not a thing there, you know,
Yeah.
versus when you go to other places, it's like, you know, vegan city, like you've got it all over. You don't even have to look and search. So I think
Indian
that's,
restaurants are great. I love Indian restaurants, man.
oh yeah, most of their options are vegetarian because I feel like that culture is vegetarian by default
Yeah.
anyway, based on
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
religious
Yeah.
practices and things.
Yep.
Um, but I think, yeah, so that's another thing too that I kind of take into account. Like, okay, where am I meeting this individual? Is the location in a place that's like a food desert? Like what, so what is the expectation anyway now based on those kind of things too? So sometimes, you know, there's a lot of things that go into play when you go out to eat and being plant-based and things like that. I mean, I don't go out to eat a lot, but when I do, those are some of the things that I have to think about. But then I also try not to be that vegan who's like, oh, we're not going out with you. You're so difficult. Like, you know what I mean? So it's also kind of like, you know, I'll eat before,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
we're going somewhere, I'll just get some fries and call it a
Yeah,
day.
but I was gonna say it's different when you're going out with your friends, you know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's a big group of everyone, you know, and this is the place
Right.
they're going to
Yeah.
versus someone who you're dating, who you're
Yeah.
going to be going out, who you're likely going to be going out with a little bit
Yeah.
more consistently, and then
Yeah.
it's just y'all two. And then when it's a date, it's usually something where we both want to enjoy this experience. It's not
Yeah.
just
That
for
too. Yeah.
one person all the time. So if if it's a constant fight, you know, you have to get into it, just makes the logistics of everything, you know, that more difficult. So,
Yeah. I agree. You're right about that too.
yeah.
Yeah. An
But
experience altogether.
I agree. So, but anyway, Tamika, this is a nice start to the first episode. We're nearly 2 hours in right now, so
Right.
I don't want to take it on too much longer than that. But you know, I can definitely say first, I want to thank you. You know, like for the inspiration. I want to definitely encourage you to keep putting out that great content. For welcome to the winner's circle because it is a great podcast and
Thank you.
just know that it is touching lives out here, man. You are inspiring people. So keep it going. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Have a great night. All right.
All right. Good night.
Bye.